On-campus sexual assault, which affects about a fifth of college students who attend college here in the U.S.
So sexual assault is any type of sexual activity or contact that you do not consent to. Sexual assault can happen through physical force, threats, or if the attacker gave the victim drugs or alcohol as part of the assault. Why is sexual assault a community issue and problem?
So sexual assault affects all people. If you have been sexually assaulted, it's really important to understand that it's not your fault, regardless of the circumstances. In the U.S., 1 in 3 women has experienced some kind of sexual violence. Now, that includes rape, but it is not limited to rape. So that can mean uncomfortable touching or things of that nature. 1 of every 6 women here in the U.S. has been a victim of rape or an attempted rape. So 14.8% of women have been raped, and 2.8% of them, it was just an attempt. And about 3% of American men have been raped or attempted rape, and that's about 1 in every 33 men has experienced that.
So what were the survivors doing when the crime occurred? Do we have any data around that?
Yeah, so most of the time you're just at home or you're asleep, 48% of the time. That's really scary to know.
So that just means they're just in their dorm room.
Yeah, and about 30% of the time you're going to and from school or work. I think that's really interesting because my father is always telling me, especially when I was living by myself going to Tuskegee, that I don't need to take the same way home. Now I find this data that really backs that up. Everybody else was just, running errands or at work. That data is a little bit more inconclusive. I know it's a negative association to make that a part of the college experience is sexual assault, but that is a reality for a lot of college students.
Do most survivors of sexual assault know their attackers?
Yes, I think that it's a common misconception that it's a stranger in the dark waiting to attack you. Mostly, we know who they are, and so about 57.6% of women who will be assaulted, they'll be assaulted by somebody they know, but who is not necessarily a family member. Second highest statistic is someone who you do have a family relationship with, and that's about 16.6%. Following that, it's just someone that you might not know.
How many of these assaults go unreported?
About 88%, and that's most of them.
Wow, 88%, guys. You hear that? 88% of sexual assaults go unreported. That's a high number.
I just want people to know that there's no timeline to speaking out about your experience.
So how are the survivors assaulted?
It's usually a physical force, or they're incapacitated by drugs or alcohol, or they're being violently forced. And some people are coerced, so that's about 11.2% of people. For undergraduates, about 23.1% of women will be assaulted. Roughly 5% of the undergraduate men will experience the same thing. Now, when you get to graduate and professional school, that percentage lowers, so around 8.8% of women will be assaulted through being incapacitated by drugs or being physically or violently forced, and the number drops for the men to about 2.2%. One thing that I was having trouble finding during my research was numbers for vocational schools, and I think that those are often overlooked. I'd be curious to know exactly what's going on with vocational and trade schools and how the reporting goes there.
So let's talk about who is more at risk for sexual violence.
18 to 24. Female college age students who aren't in school, they're 20% less likely to experience sexual assault than a woman who is attending school. Men who are college age, so from 18 to 24, are 6.6% more likely to be assaulted if they are not in school. I thought those numbers were interesting.
How do colleges and universities address sexual assault on campus?
They really don't have an incentive to address them. Rape is looked at like a PR problem. Nobody wants to send their child to the rape school, so they won't report those numbers. So 89% of colleges reported 0 rapes in 2015. Gray rape is basically a gray area when it comes to assault. So that means you have an experience where maybe you didn't necessarily say yes, but you didn't say no. However, you did feel like it was a violation. And those things are harder to prosecute. And I think even more commonly, than sexual assault. Women do experience times where they feel that they are backed into a corner and maybe the only way out is to have sex with this person. However, that's something that they didn't necessarily want. It's really dancing the line of consent and non-consent, and we're finding more and more that women have been put in highly uncomfortable positions. The way they acted is not something they necessarily wanted to do. It's a PR problem for colleges. Most times the rapists sue the school. Only about 2 to 8% of rape claims are false. So there is a big narrative within popular media that women who cry rape are lying. Only 2 to 8% of them are probably lying, and only about 6% of men are rapists. And usually these people who are committing rapes on campuses are repeat offenders.
What can women and young ladies do to reduce the risk of a sexual assault?
I know it sounds juvenile, but using the buddy system really is a good thing because you have someone there to account for your whereabouts. And I know a lot of partying goes on in college, so having someone there to maybe be your designated driver person to watch what you're doing is a good thing. And maybe if you don't have a buddy and can't get access to one, letting somebody know where you are. Okay, I'm gonna put myself out there a little bit. When I was in college, I did go visit a gentleman friend of mine, just to hang out, but I let my friend know where I was because you never know what could happen. Even though I felt like I knew him very well and I thought he was very nice, people do put on a front, and like I said, 48% of aggressors are someone the victim knows and knows well. At least they thought they did. So letting people know what you're doing is paramount. And when you're being poured a drink, watch that drink. And if you leave your drink, that drink is trash. Leave it. You never know what people are, if they're watching you, if they're putting something in your drink. 90% of sexual assault cases on campus come about because there was alcohol involved. And a lot of these drugs that people use to drug women are odorless and they're tasteless.
We have some comments here. She's saying pepper spray.
That is good too.
Buddy system awareness. And you were saying what, a taser?
Yes. Check the weapons rules for your campus. Also, since we're in a new day and age, keep your online life private. People do watch your page to see what you're doing. And if you're someone who updates a Twitter, Snap, Instagram that is not private, then people are able to keep tabs on you. About 4% of women in college will be victims of stalking. And these things aren't as far-fetched as people think. And don't be afraid to file a Title IX lawsuit against your school if you feel like they aren't doing enough. A friend of mine who did suffer an assault by one of my friends.
Wow.
One of my close friends, which was a crazy thing. My challenge to you all is pretty simple. If you are a college alumna or even if you just went, please find out what the reporting procedures are for your school and what support systems they have. It's probably not what you think it is, and oftentimes they're not following through like they should. So learn about your school and think about the people who went there after you. And please watch The Hunting Ground. It is on Netflix.